Okay, my friends, here it is. The video where I'm going to give you the secrets. This is going to show you what separates the average gardener from the top shelf grower. Now, what I'm about to show you is more important than any fertilizer that you can make. It's more important than plant varieties or timing. It's more important than literally any other aspect in the garden if you want to have a top shelf garden bursting with life and produce, feeding your body nutrient-rich stuff that is going to make you thrive in life. So here is the ticket. Let us go out into the garden and I will show you what's up. Okay, my friends, first thing, we are out in the garden. I want to show you, this is where the seed starting was happening, but it's getting a little bit overrun. So we've got the remainder of all the plants, the marigolds and some calendula or some Mexican sunflower, stuff like that. Now we need to clean this all up because it's getting overrun by weeds. So we're just going to briefly, this whole thing took about 20 minutes and we just pulled the weeds, put down some landscaping fabric, and now we've got a nice clean spot. And we are going to, because pretty soon we're going to be starting more seeds. So you'll see that video as it comes. But now we're going to look at the arugula bed, and the arugula is growing so thick and luscious and delicious, eating this stuff every day. But what you don't see is the two marigolds that I have planted because I want these marigolds as pest deterrents. So we need to clear cut around the marigolds because they're getting smothered out. If we don't do this, then they are going to die. They're just going to perish. And so they're going to be here long after the arugula is totally gone. So we want to make sure that they thrive. Plus we get dinner that way. So we're going to move on then to the other side of the bed. And do you see anything that doesn't belong? We need to just pull that. We just gently pull that weed. And then we're going to pull a few others. And this is purslane, which is also edible. But if you don't take care of it, nip it in the bud, it will overtake everything. So we pull those. Now here we are at some onion seeds, guys. They have gone to seed, and you can tell when they're ready to harvest by pinching it. And if you roll it around on your fingers, you will see that there's a little black seed in there. So right now, I'm just going to make a mental note that sometime within the next 4 or 5 days, I'm going to cut it right here, and I'm going to hang it upside down in the basement so that I can save the seeds for next year. Then we're going to move on, and we can see that here I planted some marigolds for pest deterrents, and they will get huge. But they're getting attacked by the slugs for one. They'll be fine, but they need this leaf out of the way because they need full sun. So I need to just remove this leaf. Just this simple act is going to make sure that they will thrive into adulthood. Then we're going to move on. We're going to examine the celery. Everything looks pretty good with the celery. I don't see any issues. I don't see any big weeds. If I do, I just pull them. We're going to go ahead and get hands on to the mustard greens. We're going to have a look at it and see how it's feeling. We're going to look at the shijimisa, which we've been eating for about a month and a half now. It's been delicious. And most of it is looking pretty good and healthy, but we can see we're getting some pretty serious slug damage at this point. So I haven't sprayed anything, but we are going to spray something soon. Here is the exact solution. Take a screenshot of this. We're going to spray that every evening for about 5 days, and that's going to eliminate the slug problem. And you can see here that the shijimises are going to bolt. So we're just going to help delay that and pick these. And we're going to stir fry them tonight. They're going to be super delicious. So guys, there's a certain allowable amount of holes in the leaves, not a problem, but you just got to catch it before it becomes a problem. So we're going to examine the leaves. We're going to see, okay, because of the hot weather, this mustard is going to bolt, and that's fine. We knew it was coming. We've been eating on it for about a month. So we're probably going to make a mental note that we're going to ferment these healthy leaves. In the next few days, we're going to ferment those to store them for to eat them over the summer. Now here is the potato bed. You can see we have a few sacrificial garlic in there for pest deterrents, but this is the bed that got overrun by the garden symphalans and decimated the beet and turnip crop. So we're going to plant potatoes here instead. And they just started coming up. So what we're going to do now is cover them in more straw so that no sunlight reaches them. And they're going to poke their way up through this, and they're going to be perfectly fine and healthy. Now here we are at the garlic bed, and we can make note that, okay, tonight for dinner, we need to get some of these garlic scapes because they're coming up hot and heavy. But when we look here, we can see, all right, maybe this appears to be like weeds in between the rows, but it's not. There's calendulas, which are wonderful pest deterrent plants. But then as we look, there's also coriander, a rogue cilantro plant that went to seed. Now these are going to attract all kinds of pollinators, help deter pests. We're going to allow these plants to be. These calendulas as well, we just let them be. But here's a plant, the devil's weed, that we have got to remove. This is the creeping Jenny or whatever it is, and it will smother everything. And so we got to remove that and dispose of it. The other one's not a problem. Now, here is a Swiss chard, Vulcan Swiss chard, which is going to be Jurassic, but to give it a good start in life so it doesn't get destroyed by the cat and various other creatures, I put that cone around it. Now, you can see when we lift the cone off now that the soil block underneath is exposed. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a handful of rich compost and pack it around the base of that. And that thing is going to be huge. Wait till you see the Midsummer Garden Tour. It'll be like 3 feet tall. So we're going to take that cage, though, and we're going to come over to the Mexican sunflowers, and we can see the cat has been digging and making little piles in the Mexican sunflowers, because that side is supposed to look like this side and be nice and full. But the cat's destroyed some. So what we need to do is use this cage to ensure that at least a couple of them survive into adulthood. These are the kind of things you got to keep up on. So now we're going to look here at the cabbage and beet bed, and the first thing we want to see is what the weed pressure, what appears to be weeds here. Now we can see the devil's weed here, the creeping Jenny, and we're going to remove that stuff because it will smother everything. See, it gets up in the beds, it gets up underneath stuff. But it's easy to remove. Now the rest of these are just dandelions, so we're going to leave all of these. A lot of people say, oh, I want to pull all the weeds, but these actually just help to shade the soil. I love dandelions, and so we're going to leave them. But we are going to pull this nettle, this baby nettle that is in there, definitely. Then we're going to go to the cabbage bed. We can see that the cabbage is doing nice and wonderful, and we're going to pull some of the chamomile so that it continues to produce more. Chamomile, any of them that have the petals downturned in the middle of the day are ready to be pulled. And if you don't pull them, then the plant will stop producing. So you want to make sure that you pull them. I got them all over the place for pest deterrents and for tea during the wintertime. It's wonderful. So here we are on the other side of the bed, and these weeds you must pull. So these things spring up overnight. These are thistles, and make sure you're wearing a glove because they've got like a neurotoxin in them. It's terrible. So you pull them, and you want to try and get as much of the root as possible so that they don't grow back. Now, here's another one at the other end of the bed, and do not let them go to seed. Otherwise, you will have a friend for life, my friends. And so we're going to try and pull this. See, we got to real gingerly pull it. And look here, we got that whole root. That thing is not coming back. Good riddance. Do not even compost these, guys. You put them directly where they belong, in the trash, so you don't step on them. Now we're going to go to the squash, and we want to examine the squash daily. This is just a morning walk around the garden, and you can see that there's no eggs, no squash vine borers. Even though it's still early for the vine borers, we want to stay up on it. We just have a look. There's no damage. These two squash plants these are the patty pan squash, and they are going to fill this entire space. They get like 6 feet across. But then we're going to look over here and go, oh no, some of the fabric got moved around, and it was smothering out the sunflowers that are just starting, the evening sunset sunflowers. So these are starting. We want to make a mental note that we're going to need to watch for slug pressure on those. And we can look and we can see that the peppers along the line are finally starting to pop. And so we make a mental note of that as well, that all the peppers look like they're finally starting to pop, except this one. So we'll give it a little tug, and if it doesn't come out really easily, then it's just waiting to pop. Even that one is going to come out of it. I'm sure of it. So we're just going to leave everything, make a mental note, everything is doing good. As we continue the tour, we will come over to the German butterball potato bed, and we're going to look at the leaves, just examine. Everything looks pretty good, except we see some flea beetles, but flea beetles on potatoes is not really a problem. So it's better that they are trapped on the potatoes than on other crops. We're looking for the potato beetle, the big striped potato beetle, and we don't see any of those. If we do, we'd eliminate them. But everything looks pretty good, except for this mulberry tree that's trying to come up. So we've got to make a mental note. We're going to have to come back later with a shovel and eliminate this thing. Now here we are at the end of the bed, and we see a volunteer squash plant. I didn't plant that there. It just came up from a random rogue squash last year, but it's got to go. because it's going to get way too big in this potato bed. So it's time to pull it. We're going to pull it, but we're not going to let it just sit there in the garden because that will attract pests that will devour the squash. And so we're going to just put it into the compost bin. Now the compost, this is the slow compost, and I just scoot it out of there and I put a tarp over it, and it makes rich compost, wonderful for teas and stuff, or compost teas. Now we're going to show you the peas, and these I had to put this bird netting over because the sparrows will come and totally decimate the growing tips of the pea plants. It was terrible, so I had to cover them. But when we come inside, we can see that part of them have fallen off of the trellis. So we are going to need to help them reattach themselves to the trellis because they're going to want to grow nice and big and strong. So in order to do that, we are just going to take some string, some baling twine, and we're just going to help it secure itself. We're going to tie it to the cattle panel, and it's going to reattach itself. Literally by the end of the day, this thing will have itself reattached to the trellis, because if we just let it go, the whole thing will fall down. These little tendrils are going to reattach themselves just like that right there. And we're going to have peas at least for the next month until we replace all of them with cucumbers. Now, when we come over a couple of feet to another trellis, we look at the cucumbers and we can see there's not too much issues happening right now. So we just check out the underside of the leaves. These cucumbers are fresh and up and coming. Now we come back to the melon patch here, and we look and we see these Sakata sweet melons are doing pretty good right here. Everything looks normal. Okay, not a problem. We come back to the Maduras melons, and we see, the first signs of anthracnose. And so we are going to make a mental note here. We got to nip this in the bud quickly. Otherwise, it will decimate the whole crop. And so here is what I'm going to use. Take a screenshot of this. I'm going to use that for the next week, and that's going to pretty much cure it. And I know it's anthracnose because we brought in a load of contaminated chicken manure last year that really did terrible for the garden. So we're going to cure it. Now, here's a cattle panel trellis where we're going to grow the honey nut squash. Here is the honey nut squash, and they're starting to get a bit of the anthracnose as well because we put that chicken manure all over both these beds. So we're going to spray that with that same solution that you just saw, and I'm fully confident that that is going to help cure it, and that these things are going to cover that entire cattle panel with succulent, sweet, tiny little honey nut squash. So then we're going to turn around and examine the tomatoes. Now, we're doing a style this year where we just let these tomatoes grow wild in these cages. We're not pruning them at all whatsoever. No pruning the suckers, no training them up a string, none of that stuff. These are just going to be Jurassic, super healthy. We put them Viking nutrients in here. I got several experiments going on for you guys. We got 3 Cherokee purple plants here and 1 purple bumblebee, and they're going to do great. And so here's a side note. Any stagnant water, you want to go ahead and empty that because that will just breed mosquitoes. Now here we are at the sweet potato bed, and we can see that they're starting to establish, but the weeds are establishing as well. And so we're just going to go through now at this point that the sweet potatoes are established, and we're just going to pull these weeds like that real easily. And then we're going to put down huge handfuls of this straw, or whatever mulch you have, but we have a lot of straw in Indiana. And so we're going to use the straw. The whole beds are going to look like this. And these things are going to explode. You will see in a midsummer garden tour that these vines are going to be all over the fence. They're going to be everywhere. So we're going to do both these beds just like that. Then we're going to examine the carrots. We want to get eyes on the carrots. Everything looks good here. Everything looks normal. Not a problem. Then we're going to go to the side where we see the mint bed. And guys, I have tons of mint. I love it. Every day I'm eating this mint. And so we just want to make sure none of it's going to seed. If it is, we're going to pick it. But everything looks good and beautiful here. And then we're going to go around to the front of the house and check out the herbs and stuff. So guys, what I'm trying to show you here is that the most important element in growing is the love. The love that you're showing consistently. You have to make it a habit to walk through the garden and to touch the plants, to see, to put eyes on the plants, to feel what they're feeling, to sort of smell things and taste things and look at, okay, these nasturtiums have come up, okay, so there's 7 of them there. Now we want to make a mental note. and that we'll have to thin those out. We want to look at this chamomile and we say, okay, we're going to pick any one with downturned leaves on it because that's what makes them keep producing. So the love is the most important aspect. That is how you get things before they become a problem. That is how you learn the nature of the plants. That's how you learn to read the plants. And after you apply fertilizers or anything, you read the plants. That is how you learn to speak the language of the garden, and you'll be able to grow anything. It doesn't matter. Even if it's catnip like this, then you'll be able to grow the catnip and you'll be able to give it to the cat so that it can go on some kind of a trip or whatever it does. But it's all about the love. So there you go, my friends. I will see you Saturday, 12 noon Eastern time for the live Q&A.